Selamat datang ke topik 6, editing.
In this tutorial, I'm going to be going over how to take an editable spline and add some depth to it. So we already figured out how to make a regular spline just by using any of our drawing tools. So I'm going to go to my top view here and get rid of my grid, or else it's going to annoy me. And let's go over here to the shapes and create a spline. So I'm going to go ahead and make just a little shape like this, curve it, and keep one right there. And you can make any shape you want. It's just I'm making this one for a very specific reason that you will see in a little bit. And oh yeah, just like that. And not bad. Close that spline. So now I have this spline right here, and I'm gonna go ahead and select it, and I'm gonna go ahead and right click this and convert it to an editable spline, but I can't do that with my screen recorder on, or it'll mess up. So you do that and I'll see you in a second. Alright, so now I took this and I converted it to editable spline. Now in my modifiers tab right here, I can treat it like editable spline. So the first thing I want to do, and this is how you add depth to a spline. Let me turn this so you can see the depth. What you need to do is select it, and then you need to go down to your extrude modifier, if I can find it. It's probably above the F's. Extrude, and bam, look at that. You can change the amount, which is depth, and the segments is just for well, you can probably see in this little checkbox right here. If I select this, the segments is pretty much how much data there is there. So I'm gonna leave it with like only a few like that, since we're not gonna be really working with it anyways. And again, anytime you want to add depth, you need to go to your modifiers list and extrude, and that's how you can turn something that was 2D into 3D, and by changing the amount changes the depth of it pretty much. So now let me go ahead and select this and get rid of my extrude, and probably didn't want to do that, just want to get rid of my extrude modifier. So what I'm going to do now is add something called a lathe to this, and I think a lathe, I'm not sure where the name come from exactly, but like whenever you put something, like you're creating pottery and you put it on that thing that spins it around and like molds it, like I don't know, like you're making pottery, I guess. I think that's a lathe. If I'm wrong, leave me a comment and tell me. If I'm right, leave me a comment and tell me I'm right. I need to learn something. But anyways, that's what pretty much does to this, so that's why I'm guessing. So in order to do this, make a lathe, and what that does is also take this 2D spline and make it 3D. We need to select it, and for the modifier, you can probably guess what this is, lathe. And I might even be saying it wrong. So now we have different options right here. This is the center of it, this is the min, which I wanted, that's why I created it, and this is the max. Each one spins it a different way and gives you a different portion. So what that did is pretty much took that spline and spun it around until it made a 3D shape. So that's why I picked that, since I made a nice little glass right here. So if you're wondering why the F did I make that weird shape, that's why I wanted to show it to you guys. So that is pretty much the basics of how you take an editable spline and make it 3D. Again, that's the extrude modifier. Let me select that. Extrude modifier. And that would be face extrude, or lathe right there. So those are two different ways depending on what you want to do to make it 3D. So in the next tutorial, we're going to be going over editable polygons, and that is the advanced way that you edit 3D shapes. So I just wanted to give you guys a quick tutorial on how to work with 2D and convert them to 3D. So thank you guys for watching. The next couple tutorials, probably the next 3 tutorials, are probably going to be the most important in this whole entire series. So make sure to check them out. In this tutorial, we're going to be covering editable polygons. Now, this is probably what you're going to use when you're making the rest of your animations from now on, actually, like character models, or cars, or anything actually. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Go ahead and click sphere and create a sphere, and just press W on your keyboard for the move tool and bring it up, and bring it out so it's into view. There we go. So now that we created a sphere, what we would usually do according to our last tutorials is right click it and create editable spline. But what we want to do is right click this, press convert to, and convert to editable poly. Now I can't show you this or else my screen recorder will mess up it again, I'm going to right click it, convert to editable poly. So you do that and I'll see you in a second. Alright guys, I just selected this, converted it to editable poly, and it brought up our modify tab and it shows that this is indeed an editable poly. So there are two different ways that we can alter this, and that is with our modifiers, and those are things we learned before, that does weird transformations through this, or we can work with each of the individual sub objects. So if we go ahead and expand this menu right here, we can see them all. The vertex is all the points that make up the object. The edges, let me see, I could probably scroll in this one a little better. The edges are these lines. The edges are what connect the vertexes. You don't want to work with border usually unless you're doing something real specific. The poly is each one of these shapes, or each face of it pretty much. So the polys are the faces, and the last one, the elements. If you have any if you have a couple objects in here, then it's going to select the entire thing. So you don't really want to work with elements a lot. What we're going to be doing is work with poly like 99% of the time. Poly and probably polygons, so we can work with the faces. But for right now, go to vertex, because that's where we're going to be working with. And let's just zoom in a little bit. Right there. And another thing I want to point out, let's just zoom in a little bit for more. Anytime we have one of these sub objects selected, it's going to turn red. So we can select them by clicking on them. We can also click and drag to select a multiple amount, or if we want to select non-adjacent ones, we can click, hold control, click, click, and then we get random ones if we hold down control and click. So that's how we select various what they're called, sub objects. And again, once you select them, they're going to turn red. Now a problem that we have with selecting sub objects is, here's what happens. Whenever you select a sub object like this, it doesn't only select the ones you see. What it does is it looks through this, and if you can see in this one, probably shouldn't have just selected them all, it not only selects the ones in front right here, but it selects the ones behind it too. And that's because if I turn this, whenever I select it, the box here, what's a better way to see this, like right here, whenever I select these up here, it looks through, and now you can see it selected the ones behind it too. So not only the ones that you could see, but the ones through, that the ones you couldn't see as well. So this is a problem whenever we're trying to work with only this side of the sphere. So what do we want to do that whenever we could select it like this, it only selects these and not the ones behind it too, like there. Well, let's go back home, and what we can do is check this little box. I need to take a break here for a second, and this is called ignore backfacing. And what this little thing does is it only selects the ones with the normals pointing towards you, or in other words, it only selects the ones that you can see and it doesn't go through it. So now when we have that checked and we select this, look at this, the ones in the back are not checked, only the ones in front. How awesome is that? So I usually have ignore backfacing on all the time. I don't really know why they have it as the default off, because you usually want to have it on. So now with those selected, let's go ahead and, well, I want to teach you guys one more thing. Another thing that you can do is grow or shrink your selection. Whenever you make a selection, like let's say we select these two vertices right here, whenever we grow, it expands our selection outward. So what's a better view for this? Let me see. Here we go. As you can see, I have two selected now. Then when I grow that, it has all of these selected. Then when I press grow again, it has a huge range selected right here. So I can do the opposite of that by shrinking, 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 shrinking until nothing's left. So that's another way to alter your selection. But for now, let's go ahead and do something with this. I'm going to select these two right here, and make sure you have ignore backfacing off. Press W to get your move tool and go ahead and pull them out. So now we have this little thing popping out of our sphere right there. So now let's go down here and select, let's go ahead and select something like that one. Hold down control, and you probably just want to work with your select object. This one, this one, this one, and this one, and this one. Now go ahead and press W again, and let's go ahead and take those and Y and move them back, like right there. So let me see how it looks. So now we got something that looks like a nose, kind of, and a mouth. And again, I'm just teaching you how to use them. I'm not making a real good animation, but I guess the only thing we need now is eyes. This pretty much looks like a jack-o'-lantern, but hey, whatever. So now in order to get eyes, here's what I'm going to do. Go back and get out of your modify panel and go to the create panel, and let's go ahead and create two spheres. So in your standard primitives, go ahead and create a sphere right there. That looks good. Now let's go ahead and move that up, and if we zoom out a little bit, we can move it over, up, and over, and just back a little bit to set it in his head. Gotta position this just right, don't want to mess it up. Right there. Actually, you probably should move it over a little bit. He ain't no Cyclops. So then after that, go ahead with this selected, hold down shift on your keyboard, and we can move it over to this side right here and move it back just like that. So what shift does is create a copy of it, which you should know from the other tutorials. So now we have this little dude with the nose that we extruded using the vertices, and also the mouth, which we selected all the vertices and pushed them back. So that is your real quick tutorial on how to make a jack-o'-lantern type. Again, didn't want to really create anything in this tutorial. I just want to show you how you can use your vertices and sub-objects to select different parts of the sphere, and move them in and out. So look at that. That is a professional looking. They should put that in a video game or something. Mr. Jack-o'-lantern. That is good. I gotta send that. Gotta put this on my resume. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you know how to work a little bit with editable polys now. In the next tutorial, we're going to be learning how to work with them in an advanced kind of way. So again, thank you guys for watching.